Europe has always been a dream destination. Cobblestone streets, charming cafes, centuries-old museums, and picture-perfect beaches. But it has also always been an expensive dream. But what if we told you that there is a shortcut to this dream? That there is a place where all of this is possible, but at a cost of living that really fits your budget? Well, that place exists, and once you discover it, there's no turning back. Here, your money is worth double, sometimes triple. Everything is cheaper, quieter, and simpler. And amid this affordable cost of living, you'll still find tradition, history, and landscapes worthy of an old postcard. We're talking about a country that has beaches in the summer, snow-capped mountains in the winter, green trails in the spring, medieval castles, Roman ruins, and to top it all off, a lifestyle where your money really goes further. If this sounds like a dream, you better start packing your bags. And the destination? Albania. Today, Bello Mundo will show you why this country hidden in the Balkans has become the darling of backpackers, digital nomads, and budget travelers, and how it gained a reputation as one of the cheapest countries in Europe, and perhaps one of the most surprising as well. Number 1. Location and general information. Albania is one of those countries that hardly anyone puts on their itinerary. It doesn't have the hype of France or the buzz of neighboring Italy or Greece. But those who get there almost always ask themselves, how did I never think of this place before? And honestly, this oversight only benefits those who discover it. The country is located in southeastern Europe, on the Balkan Peninsula, close to Greece, Montenegro, Kosovo, and North Macedonia, and just a short boat ride from Italy across the Adriatic Sea. It has a blue coastline on the Ionian Sea, snow-capped mountains in winter, historic villages that seem frozen in time, and cities full of life. But the most impressive thing is the history and culture of this place. Hidden for decades behind the Iron Curtain of communism, Albania was one of the most isolated countries in Europe throughout the 20th century. While the continent opened up to tourism and modernity, here time seemed to move at a different speed. Culturally, it is a predominantly Muslim country, but totally secular and mixed, a legacy of the Ottoman Empire mixed with Western influences. The language is unique. Albanian is unlike any other language in Europe, and the hospitality of the people leaves a lasting impression on any visitor. In short, Albania delivers much more than it promises. It has beaches that rival those of Greece, mountains that look like they came straight out of the Swiss Alps, and whitewashed stone towns that look like movie sets, only without the crowds of tourists. It is an authentic country, where the old and the new coexist side by side with a naturalness that is hard to find elsewhere. And now that you've gotten a feel for this place, with its peculiar past, unique traditions, and landscapes that change around every corner, it's time to understand what makes it even more interesting: the cost of living or traveling there. Because honestly, it's like discovering a five-star restaurant with a bakery menu. According to European reports, the overall cost of goods and services in Albania is about 50% lower than the European Union average. In sectors such as restaurants and accommodation, prices are among the lowest on the continent, only 42% of the European average, according to data from Eurostat, the official statistics agency of the European Union. Number 2. Good, inexpensive food. Let's start with what everyone loves: food. Albanian cuisine is a delicious blend of Greek, Turkish, and Italian influences. You'll find Greek salad with fresh cheese, roasted kufte, pizza, and pasta. And of course, typical dishes such as börek, a stuffed puff pastry that is a cousin of Turkish borek, or tavekosi, lamb roasted in yogurt, traditional, creamy, and full of flavor. But here, eating well doesn't mean breaking the bank. To give you an idea, lunch for two without drinks, which would cost you almost 80 euros in Paris, or more than 70 euros in Rome, costs much less in Albania. You sit down in a restaurant, order a starter, a main course, a drink, and pay around 30 euros. And we're not talking about fast food. This is home-cooked food, prepared with care, well-served, and seasoned with soul. In the supermarket, prices follow the same logic. A liter of milk costs about 1 euro, half a kilo of bread costs 50 cents, and a kilo of tomatoes costs less than 75 cents. Meanwhile, in Paris or Madrid, a kilo of chicken fillet costs over 12 euros. In Tirana, you pay 6 euros, half the price with the same quality. Fruit is also very cheap. Apples, oranges, bananas, all for less than 1.50 euro per kilo. If we add it all up, tomatoes, milk, bread, cheese, and chicken, this full shopping cart comes to approximately 22 euros. Now imagine buying exactly the same things in Paris or Madrid. There, that same shopping cart would cost over 55 euros. And if you try to make the same purchase in Switzerland, the shock is even greater. In Zurich, a shopping cart with the same basic products costs over 120 euros. It's the kind of bill that makes anyone rethink their next travel destination. And that's not the only attraction. Number 3. Housing. If there's one item that weighs heavily on the pocket of any traveler or resident, it's rent. And this is where Albania shows, once again, why it is considered the cheapest country in Europe. In Tirana, the capital, rents are so low compared to other European cities that it seems like a typo. For those who dream of spending some time there, whether studying, working remotely, or enjoying life as a retiree, the cost of housing is one of the lowest in Europe. In Tirana, the capital, a furnished one-bedroom apartment in the city center costs around 700 euros per month. If you choose more remote neighborhoods or smaller cities such as Shkodër or Vlora, this figure drops to around 500 euros. And we're not talking about old shacks. It's common to find apartments with modern furniture, equipped kitchens, fast internet, and even balconies with views of the mountains or the sea. Now compare that to other cities in Europe. In Paris, the French capital, and Milan, Italy, the same apartment costs around 1,400 euros per month. In Zurich, Switzerland, the price can reach 2,000 euros, which is more than 5 times the cost of living alone in the center of Tirana. In other words, living in Tirana can cost less than half of what it costs in Paris or Milan, and up to 5 times cheaper than in Zurich. More than just saving money, you also live safely and enjoy a beautiful view from your windows. And best of all, without sacrificing quality of life. Number 4. Transportation. If there's one expense that usually weighs heavily at the end of the month, it's transportation. But in Albania, it's almost non-existent. The country is small. Crossing it from north to south takes a maximum of 7 hours by car. And public transportation is simple, functional, and surprisingly cheap. In Tirana, for example, a bus ticket costs 40 lek, the equivalent of 41 cents. Now compare that to cities like Paris, Milan, or Madrid, where the same ticket costs 2 euros and 50 cents. An unlimited monthly pass, which costs around 16 euros in Albania, easily exceeds 88 euros per month in these capitals for urban transport alone. If you want to travel between cities, Albania has a network of buses and vans called Furgon, which connect virtually all cities. A 2-hour trip, such as from Tirana to Berat, costs around 4 euros and 50 cents. Even longer journeys, such as from Tirana to Saranda on the Albanian Riviera, cost a maximum of 10 euros. And everything works, even without a formal bus station. Many people catch the bus on the sidewalk, and there is always an Albanian ready to help. Want more freedom? Renting a car in Albania is also affordable. You can find economical models for 20 to 30 euros a day, depending on the season. Just be prepared. On mountain roads, the driving style is pure wild Balkans. Sharp curves, steep slopes, and breathtaking scenery. In short, transportation in Albania is cheap, practical, makes for good stories, and above all, won't break the bank. Number 5. Beach and accommodation. When it comes to putting your feet in the sand, Albania shines even brighter. On the Albanian Riviera, you can find 3-star hotels for around 101 to 110 euros per night. 4-star accommodations cost on average between 124 and 143 euros per night. All this by the sea, with the turquoise view of the Ionian Sea that is every bit as good as any trendy beach in Europe. Now compare that with the rest. On the French Riviera, simple hotels start at around 106 euros, but in cities such as Nice, Cannes, or Saint-Tropez, a night in a comfortable hotel can exceed 690 euros, especially in summer. In Greece, destinations such as Santorini and Mykonos are even more expensive. 4-star hotels cost on average between $790 and $1,708 per night. And even hostels or simple inns in these places cost no less than $147 for a basic bed. In Italy, history repeats itself. Towns on the Amalfi Coast, such as Positano and Sorrento, also charge high prices. A night in a mid-range hotel is unlikely to cost less than 294 euros. And the most ironic thing, the sea is exactly the same. The Albanian Riviera is right on the border with Greece, bathed by the same crystal-clear waters of the Ionian Sea, with idyllic landscapes, Mediterranean cuisine, and that European summer atmosphere that everyone dreams of. The only difference is the price. In other words, if you're looking for that cinematic European look, with sun, sea, and tranquility, but without breaking the bank, Albania delivers all that, and then some. Number 6. Leisure and entertainment. Even when it comes to having fun, Albania surprises. And not just because of the low cost, but because of how much you can do with so little. Want something basic? A movie ticket in Tirana costs about 500 lik, the equivalent of $5.50. And we're not talking about a rundown theater. It's a modern cinema with air conditioning, powerful sound, and comfortable seats. Now compare that to Paris or Milan, where the same ticket costs at least 15 euros. That's $16.20. And in Zurich, the price doubles. A regular ticket can easily exceed 30 Swiss francs, reaching $33 for a simple trip to the cinema. Prefer clubbing? Tirana's nightlife is lively, young, and affordable. The Bello Mundo neighborhood, once exclusive to the communist elite, is now the city's coolest hangout. There, you can drink and dance all night long without spending much. A local beer costs around 300 lek, about $3.30. A well-served gin and tonic costs 500 lek, about $5.50. In other European cities, the same drinks can cost $4 to $5.50, at least. And the most curious thing, many parties in Tirana don't even charge admission. And when they do, it's no more than $6.60. In Zurich, just the entrance fee to a nightclub can cost 3 times as much. And the cultural program? There's plenty. A visit to Balkans too, a former communist bunker converted into an art and history museum, costs 500 lek, or $5.50. In France or Italy, Museums with the same level of infrastructure and collection charge 15 to 20 euros, that is, between $16 and $22, and you can even include a gym membership in the bill. A monthly fee at a modern gym in Tirana is around 3,000 lek, about $33. In large European cities, this amount can easily reach $44 or more. In practice, what would be considered a luxury in France, Spain, Switzerland, and other European cities and capitals, such as going out to dinner, drinking good wine, visiting museums, attending parties, and maintaining a healthy routine, is everyday life in Albania. With a modest salary, it is possible to maintain a comfortable lifestyle with access to culture, leisure, and quality of life without having to juggle at the end of the month. And now you must be wondering, but how can everything be so cheap? Where's the catch? Well, there is no catch. There are economic and historical reasons. Number 7. Why is everything so cheap? The first explanation lies in salaries. In Albania, the average net salary is approximately 680 euros per month. In Paris, however, the average exceeds 3,500 euros. In other words, if the cost of living in Tirana were similar to that of the French capital, Albanians themselves would not be able to survive. Prices reflect the local reality, which means that housing, transportation, food, and leisure are much more affordable. Another important factor is that Albania does not use the euro. The official currency is the lek, which has a lower value and is controlled internally. This allows prices to remain competitive for tourists and avoids the inflation typical of countries in the Eurozone. Restaurants and hotels in the country operate at 40% of the average price in the European Union, which is great for those coming from abroad. In addition, mass tourism is still limited. Albania spent decades off the radar. This helps keep prices low as there is not yet the inflation of crowded destinations such as Santorini or Dubrovnik. Finally, there is a social phenomenon: mass emigration. Since the 90s, millions of Albanians have emigrated to countries such as Italy, Germany, and the United States. The population has declined, the domestic market has shrunk, and prices have remained stable or even fallen due to a sheer lack of demand. In villages, there are plenty of houses to rent and taxis in the square. And with a low birth rate, the country is aging fast, with little competition for services. At the end of the day, life in Albania is cheap because it has to be. For those living on a local salary, it's the minimum needed to make ends meet. But for those coming from abroad, it's a chance to live comfortably for a fraction of the price. Number 8. Challenges and difficulties. Not everything is perfect, of course. Living or traveling in Albania has its challenges, starting with the bureaucracy. The transition from communism in the 1990s was chaotic, and many processes are still on paper, with stamps and queues. Solving simple things can turn into a soap opera. The infrastructure outside the big cities also leaves something to be desired. Tirana has hospitals, good internet, and shopping malls. But just venture a little further and you will find potholed roads, almost non-existent public transportation, and villages without sanitation. The railway system is practically non-functional. Corruption is another sensitive issue. Albania has made progress toward joining the European Union, but it still faces allegations of bribery and political favoritism. This slows down investment and discourages those who want to do business there. There are also social issues. With the brain drain, there is a shortage of professionals in areas such as health and education, especially in rural areas. And traditional machismo persists, especially in conservative regions. Even so, the low cost of living makes up for it for those coming from abroad. You can live well on a small budget. And that's it for today. Now I ask you, Would you trade your country for a life in the Balkans? Tell us in the comments. If you enjoyed this tour of one of the cheapest destinations in Europe, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell. In the next video, we'll take you to another surprising corner of our Bello Mundo. See you then.